They call him the Wizard. Chapter 3. A Brush with the Beyond. The Wizard was no stranger to strange occurrences, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened that warm, moonlit evening by the Gulf of Mexico. He had set up a small booth at a bustling carnival, helping a friend sell handmade jewelry. The air was sweet with the scent of cotton candy and sea salt. The sky a clear canvas for the brilliant moon hanging above. It was one of those perfect nights when everything seemed just right. As the crowds milled about, a young woman approached his booth. She had a carefree smile and a twinkle in her eye. "You look like you've been working all day," she said. "Can I get you something? Ice cream? Coffee?" The Wizard, always one to appreciate an act of kindness, dug into his pocket and handed her a few bills. "That sounds great," he replied. "I'll take both." A few minutes later, she returned with a cone of ice cream and a steaming cup of coffee. The Wizard thanked her and took a bite of the ice cream. It was sweet and creamy, but something wasn't quite right. Before he could figure out what, the world around him started to spin. His vision blurred, and his body grew heavy. It was as if a dark fog had settled over him, pulling him down into an abyss. The next thing the Wizard knew, he was lying in a hospital bed. His body was weak, his senses dulled. He could hear the steady beep of monitors, but they seemed distant, as though they were in another world. And then, as if passing through a veil, he saw it. A violet light swirling in the distance, shapes made of pure energy dancing around him. Time felt like it was unraveling, and he wasn't sure if he was alive, dead, or somewhere in between. As the violet light enveloped him, the Wizard found himself in a world that was cold and sterile. The people moving around him looked human, but not quite. They were rigid, their skin smooth and plastic-like, as if they were mannequins brought to life. Robots. He was in a world where everything, everyone, was mechanical. Closing his eyes, the Wizard focused on his breath. He had learned long ago that meditation could guide him through strange, disorienting experiences. He slowed his heart, emptied his mind, and allowed his consciousness to drift. When he opened his eyes again, the world had softened. The robots now looked more human, their movements more natural, but still, something wasn't right. They weren't real. Not fully. "I must have crossed into another dimension," he thought. "Or maybe I've died and come back to some robotic afterlife." His mind raced with questions, but then, in the midst of his confusion, a familiar face appeared. It was his friend, the one he'd been selling jewelry with at the carnival. She smiled warmly, and in that moment, the Wizard knew he had returned to something closer to reality. The hospital, however, didn't feel safe. He had heard stories, rumors really, about people falling sick in hospitals only to never return. He wasn't about to take any chances. With the help of a kind nurse who seemed to understand his quiet urgency, the Wizard made a discreet exit from the hospital. He wasn't entirely sure how he'd survived the poisoning or what had truly happened to him in that violet-hued realm, but he knew one thing. He needed to get back to the carnival and collect his things. He hitchhiked south, his body still weak but his mind sharper than ever. Every passing moment felt like a blessing, like he'd somehow cheated death. When he arrived in South Florida, his friend welcomed him into her home. For days he slept, his body and mind recovering from the near-death experience. He dreamed of violet lights and swirling dimensions, of robots and time travelers. But when he awoke, he was back in the real world, or at least what he assumed was the real world. After regaining his strength, he hitched a ride with a group of friendly Canadians who were heading up to North Florida. They dropped him off at his beach house, a small but magical place where the ocean whispered secrets to those who cared to listen. The Wizard stood on the sand, looking out at the waves, and took a deep breath. He had survived another strange journey, this one even more mysterious than his usual escapades. There were still questions he didn't have answers to: who had poisoned him, why he'd seen what he saw, and what that robot world really was. But one thing was certain: this was far from the end of his adventures. With a quiet smile, he headed inside, already thinking about his next experiment, his next journey into the unknown. Because when you're a wizard, the line between life and death, between reality and the beyond, is always a little blurry. To be continued. Global Robotics Corporation, Global Robotics Corp. Please like, comment, and subscribe.